Russia, armed with the cross and the Kalashnikov rifle, has destroyed and driven hundreds of peoples to the brink of survival. Everyone who could not be forcibly turned into serfs was simply exterminated. For example, the Kerex people. According to the latest census, there were only 23 of them. Of those, only 4 spoke their native language, and recently, one of them was killed in the special military operation.
Well, Russia can congratulate itself on an internal achievement. It can celebrate the successful genocide of yet another small northern people. The people were called the Kerex. Like other small northern peoples, the Kerex were completely defenseless.
The Kalmyks are also one of these peoples. If they do not leave the pseudo-empire immediately, they will share the fate of the Kerex.
It is simply impossible to list all of the more than 300 national and ethnic groups in Russia. I think you understand what I mean.
Kalmykia is a republic in the Caspian steppes. In terms of territory, Kalmykia is larger than Denmark, Belgium, the Netherlands or Switzerland. But the population of the republic is very small, about 200,000 people. There are even fewer Kalmyks among them, and with each passing year, their numbers are dwindling.
Despair, a ruined urban environment, and a collapsed public transport system. If there is a ray of hope in such cities, it shines from the airport when they announce boarding for a flight to Moscow.
And people keep leaving Kalmykia for various reasons.
This is really a major tragedy.
Kalmykia is one of the poorest regions in Russia. Calling it depressed is putting it mildly. It feels as if Moscow is deliberately turning a blind eye to this republic.
How little? What's your salary?
Mine is small.
Well, how much? 15? 15. Mo.
Yes.
That's nothing.
Yes.
As part of Russia, Kalmykia has degraded to the level of Somalia because Russians don't care about the Kalmyks or their problems. Half of them couldn't even point out Kalmykia on a map.
I need you to show me the Republic of Kalmykia. You need special NOS. You need special NOS.
No idea. Somewhere around here?
I think it's probably somewhere around here. I don't know. Let's say it's here.
But in Moscow, they immediately remember the Kalmyks when they need fresh meat for yet another war of aggression. Like other small peoples of the failed empire, the Kalmyks were among the first to be sent for disposal in Ukraine. Given the small population, recruitment and mobilization became critically dangerous for the Kalmyks.
About 300,000 specialists will be called up. In what? Why? So this means that only 1% will be drafted from the mobilization reserve. That's the first thing. Secondly, what I want to say. In fact, this is very important because that army has already been on the front line for almost half a year. The guys need. Right now we need to pull ourselves together, go help the guys and relieve them somewhere.
The Kalmyks are speaking out against the Kremlin's militarist policy. Anti-war rallies have been held in the Republic.
If 1,000 young men die out of a people of 150,000, it will be a catastrophe. And poverty drives the locals to war even more than mobilization does.
It's a difficult question, and no one in Kalmykia can give a definite answer to it. But my personal opinion is that, unfortunately, our republic will soon come to an end.
What is happening in Kalmykia characterizes the entire Russian pseudo-state. Moscow, in its drive to expand the Russian world and impose orthodox values, is sending Kalmyk Buddhists to the slaughter. No, one or not, even the most hardline propagandist can explain why the Kalmyks, who have been oppressed and destroyed by Russia for centuries, should fight for the Russian world.
Well, because, because, I mean, just because, I guess.
But no matter how hard Moscow tried, it failed to turn the Kalmyks into obedient slaves. The Kalmyks are a people of warriors, descendants of the Mongols, the great Oirats. Muscovy encountered the Kalmyks in the 15th century and didn't even dare to fight them because the Bast-Chud folks kind of sat down hard on their rubber behinds at the sight of a powerful, well-trained and well-armed cavalry.
This happened at the beginning of the 17th century. The Kalmyk army began to strictly control the entire situation in southern Russia.
Moscow asked to form a military alliance, and the Kalmyk Khans agreed. At that time, they still didn't realize what they were getting themselves into. For several hundred years, the Kalmyks helped Muscovy expand in all directions, and in return, they received genocide. The statehood of the Kalmyks was eliminated by Catherine II almost simultaneously with the destruction of the Zaporizhian Sich.
By 71, the infamous Catherine II, who in fact destroyed the Cossacks, also destroyed the Kalmyk Khanate.
After Tsarist Russia, the Bolsheviks took up the baton of genocide and carried out the mass deportation of the Kalmyks to Siberia in 1943 under the name Operation Ulusi. The deportation took place in the winter, in freight cars. So it is not surprising that mortality from cold, hunger and epidemics was incredibly high.
During the war, Stalin made mistakes, and because of this, Russia suffered losses. They needed something to blame it on. So they started focusing on ethnic lines, saying these people doesn't fight well. There were all sorts of claims that there were traitors among them. But the elders say there were no traitors at all. That's how it was.
Let us remind you, the entire Kalmyk population is 3 times smaller than the population of Ryazan. But the Kalmyks endured and managed to survive. Under a massive repressive machine, they preserved their identity, faith, and culture, because among the Kalmyks, there are no Navalnys, Yashins, or Latininas. The Kalmyks will never willingly resign themselves to being a moss-covered colony of a backward empire.
The ultimate goal is still the creation of a free Kalmykia, free from everything, from imperialism, from the imposition of narratives that are not our own.
At first, the Kalmyks decided to part ways with Moscow peacefully. After the Tsars, in violation of agreements, began to infringe upon the freedoms, rights and privileges of the Irats, Khanubashi gathered the majority of the people and led them beyond the Urals to their historical homeland, having first negotiated this with the Chinese Qing dynasty. The empire did not want to let go of potential serfs and sent troops in pursuit. As a result, unfortunately, they managed to forcibly bring back a portion of the Kalmyks.
Kremlin propaganda presents the incorporation of the peoples living in the occupied territories as voluntary, right? But of course, not a single people ever joined Russia voluntarily, not at any point.
This is already some kind of unhealthy manic trait of the Russian regime. The Kalmyks were simply taken hostage, an entire people. Naturally, at the first opportunity in the early 20th century, the Kalmyks tried to send Moscow the same way as the family of Nicholas II. In 1917, the first Congress of Representatives of the Kalmyk people was held in Astrakhan. At this Congress, they declared the creation of an independent Kalmyk province. Once again, the Kalmyks decided to do everything peacefully and even remained part of Russia. And for that, once again, they suffered genocide in the 1940s, which we have already mentioned.
A strong, deliberate and systematic national policy, one that was in many ways specifically aimed at gradually eliminating and suppressing national identity, was of course very much present under the Soviet Union.
After Moscow's annexation of Crimea and the recognition of the quasi-entities of the LPR and DPR, the Kalmyk people formally gained the right to declare independence. Why is it allowed for some, but not for others?
I catch thinking that I've seen this somewhere before.
Putin himself shouted about the people's right to self-determination. It's just that the people of Donbass and Crimea don't actually exist, but the Kalmyk people do.
That really doesn't matter.
Kalmykia began to boil over, with national movements becoming more active. The point of no return came in 2019, when Moscow appointed a bandit and terrorist from the DPR, Dmitry Trapeznikov, as mayor of Elista, the capital of the republic. It was simply a slap in the face to the entire people. The Kalmyks took to the streets en masse, demanding that the thug and international criminal be thrown out of their home.
The head of the republic and the city council deputies have been asking for this mill to be removed from the city and this mill to be stopped long ago. The people of Elista and Kalmykia should not be treated like idiots. This person's reputation is so tarnished.
And the Kremlin caved in. Trapeznikov supposedly resigned of his own accord. How do you like that, Russian liberals? Has the Kremlin ever changed its decisions after your marches? Bonus question.
Oh, how convenient.
After the full-scale invasion in 2022, the Kalmyk people openly declared that they wanted nothing to do with the fascist wannabe empire. The Kalmyks do not want to die for Putin, Dugin, or Patriarch Kirill. At the Congress of the Eirat Kalmyk people, they adopted a declaration expressing Kalmykia's aspiration for independence.
The whole world saw what life is really like for Russia's indigenous peoples, for the small-numbered nations, what it means to live under oppression when your language, your culture is being destroyed by the federal authorities. We want to create our own state where we will live according to our own laws.
Moscow immediately labeled the members of the Congress as extremists and declared the declaration illegal. It's an interesting situation. Moscow considers the Kalmyks' desire for independence a crime, but the declarations of the LPR, DPR and Crimea printed on an old printer under the barrels of machine guns are considered absolutely legal, and Putin even launched a special military operation to protect those declarations.
I have made the decision to conduct a special military operation.
Just consider the Kremlin's schizophrenia. Kalmyks, who are forbidden even to think about independence, are being sent to die for the independence of the DPR. And this applies to all the republics of the Federation.
More and more people have started to support the idea that, in fact, as part of Russia, the Kalmyk people, like other, by the way, non-Russian peoples, will never have it good.
It's pointless to look for logic in the Russian state. The president of Ukraine, who does not recognize the separation of the LDNR and Crimea, is called a fascist and a Nazi. But Putin, who does not recognize the independence of Kalmykia, is considered a unifier of Russian lands. The Russian pseudo-empire is the most vile, hypocritical and criminal entity on earth. To remain a part of it is to have no self-respect. That's why Kalmykia will definitely be free, because the spirit of its people is unbreakable, and their determination to shape their own future is unwavering. The Kalmyk people will not only survive the challenges they face, but will also thrive, building a brighter, more prosperous future for themselves and for generations to come.
I would like to remind you that this video is created for entertainment purposes and contains elements of satire and irony. All facts and events are presented in a hyperbolized or exaggerated form to convey a comedic or dramatic effect. Our goal is not to mislead, but to highlight humor. Please take it with a smile.